We're in trouble here, Michael. And I can't perform my magic.
Hi everyone and welcome to Priority Holder, and today we'll be playing Black-Green Lurrus Roots in the Timeless format. Now the name of the game is Insidious Roots. It's an enchantment that whenever a creature leaves our graveyard, we create a 0/1 green plant token that put a 1/1 counter on each plant we control. So the more we do it, the bigger the plants get, the more of them we get, it gets really wild. And probably one of the easiest ways to repeatedly have creatures leave our graveyard is with Cauldron Familiar. This has a little miniature combo with Witch's Oven where if we sacrifice Cauldron Familiar to the oven, it creates a food. We can sacrifice the food to bring the Cauldron Familiar back into play. And that can create plant tokens when we have Insidious Roots out. Not to mention it helps us stabilize because it drains the opponent once. So that's a really good way to create a bunch of plant tokens. Also, Bloodghast is amazing. Just by playing lands, we can bring these back from the graveyard and trigger roots. And another way we can do it is with Mosswood Dreadknight. So if this is in play and it gets killed, we can cast its adventure from our graveyard and that triggers Insidious Roots. So those are all different ways we have to create those plant tokens. Everything else in there is sort of just support pieces. We can run Dark Ritual on this deck. We have a lot of black mana symbols. Fatal Push, Inquisition, and Stitcher Supplier is like an enabler. It can help spill Bloodghast or Cauldron Familiars into the graveyard and get things going. And of course, Lurrus can recur stuff. So yeah, we're just trying to grind people out, and let's jump into some games. Now this hand, it's pretty nice. So a Dark Ritual would really tie everything together. But this, you can't send this back. Alright, Forest, Elvish Mystic from the opponent. So it got me thinking at first they were playing elves, and I was about to use the discard spell, but then I realized, like, you know what, like, it's probably better to kill the elf. Like, that just opens up, they have so much mana next turn. So I decided to kill the elf and discard at a future turn. Now, elves aren't able to, like, play Gigantha due to some of the cards they use, so go ahead and fire off Inquisition now. And it becomes clear playing against something very interesting. So it's clearly a high power creature matters deck. So we're going to take Outcaster Trailblazer. Love that card in draft. But it's a card that can start generating lots of card advantage. Kiora can too. So I go ahead and take Kiora with the second Inquisition. Just leave them with a bunch of clunky creatures. Alright, but they do rip a third Lando and slam a Rotting Regisaur. So we're going to have to do something about that very quickly. The question is what to do. I think it's best to just run out a Mosswood Dreadknight and, for good measure, put out a Witch's Oven. It'll be able to, like, chump block the Rotting Regisaur and, like, start generating food. Not to mention we can, like, cast the Dreadknight's Adventure from the graveyard kind of thing, but Regisaur has a drawback. Alright, so the opponent goes for the Bone Crusher on Dreadknight, but we're able to sacrifice it to Witch's Oven and Fizzle Stomp so that Bone Crusher goes to the graveyard. So the opponent is now empty-handed, just like that. Gonna go ahead and adventure Mosswood Dreadknight from the graveyard, and like it is really costly doing that and having a shock land, and we got the whole collection of Dreadknights right now. So if the opponent rips like another, removal spell, we're just dead right here. So like this is sort of risky. But yeah, we're gonna block Rotting Regisaur, sacrifice Knight to Witch's Oven. Now we will need some way to like try and recoup some life. Like we can't just keep adventuring those from the graveyard, or else we're just gonna die. Decide to lead with Stitcher Supplier. What I'm looking for here is a Cauldron Familiar. Don't hit anything relevant though. Just gonna play a second creature and play it safe. We're just gonna let the other Dreadknight go, the one in the graveyard. Could Lurrus it back later if we need to. Alright, gonna block with Stitcher Supplier, and before damage sack it to Witch's Oven. Once again, looking for a Cauldron Familiar. And we do find one finally. Alright, so we're gonna pass the damage. And opponent finds a Kiora. Now that is problematic because, if they find any large power creature, they can start really chaining them off. So So I'm pretty worried about Kiora. I'm going to play the tap land and decide we have enough action that we can go for, like, to attack Kiora right here. I'm really, like I said, I'm really worried about that because that's how the opponent can really get back into this game. So I'm going to fire off Mosswood Dreadknight and draw a Dark Ritual, which will be good, but it's not really good enough right now, especially because I want that second creature in play. Alright, so let's see what the opponent finds. And they find Goreclaw, which is an absolute nightmare for us because not only does it discount creatures with power 4 or greater, when they attack they get +1/+1 and trample until end of turn. So our little endless chump blocking thing is not going to work. And opponents, this is why I was so worried about those card draw pieces. The opponent has just sort of worked themselves right back into this game. Checking my graveyard to make sure I understand everything that's going on. And I think this is a pretty massive mistake from the opponent, this no attack right here. I don't know like what they're going for, and I of course do a few Cauldron Familiar loops at the end. But I feel like we were pretty vulnerable and they should have sent in the Regisar with Trample. So like I said, I don't know, but it seems like from my perspective that would have been the scariest thing for them to do. But this was a clutch draw. We draw Insidious Roots and draw another Oven. So going to put out another Dreadknight, just trying to get as much power and toughness on the board as possible because it's going to get real nasty with Goreclaw and all their creatures. Sarkhan's Unsealing. Now it makes sense. The opponent has some very, very big ambitions here. Now Goreclaw is going to trigger, so the opponent attacks all right here. Before blocks, I'm going to do a couple Cauldron Familiar loops because that's going to trigger Insidious Roots and get us a couple plant tokens. So, wanted to do that before blocks. And, yeah. Speeding through the blocking portion because I was trying to just... Definitely wanted to get rid of Goreclaw and trying to like soak up as much damage / not die. So decided to block in this manner right here. And it is extremely costly for us. You can see we lost every single creature, but we survive at 3 life. And our opponent just puts Gigantha into hand. And now we can really start taking over because we were able to bring Cauldron Familiar back and like get the Insidious Roots train going again. So I'm going to start off with the Mosswood Dreadknight to get another plant token. And it seems like we're finally stabilizing, barring like a couple Bone Crushers to the face. But even then we have Cauldron Familiar at the ready, so decide, is it worth it to attack it? It does seem like it's worth it to kill Kiora right here because it's going to be able to allow them to cast Gigantha and draw a card off it. So go ahead and kill Kiora right here and pass the turn. And it seems like the worst is over. We do lose out on a couple Dreadknights, but that's okay. Sarkhan's Unsealing is a pretty nasty card, especially if they could slam like a Rotting Regisar or any number of creatures along those lines. But it seems like the opponent's basically dead right here. I'm speeding through like the Cauldron Familiar loops, but you could see how quickly things get out of hand with Insidious Roots. Like, look how much power and toughness we just generated right now. I'm gonna play the other Cauldron Familiar and fire up Hive of the Eye Tyrant as another attacker, and gonna go ahead and just attack in with everything. Gonna exile something from the graveyard. The opponent's just dead right here. Like, they can block the biggest creature, and before damage, gonna go ahead and do a couple more Cauldron Familiar loops to put extra 1/1 counters on each of our plant tokens, just to ensure that they're dead. But this has been awesome thus far. We were able to like stabilize and like execute a huge turnaround against the sweet deck from the opponent. So if you like if you like going back to your roots, please Guillaume activated ability, the like button. Thank you. We're on to the next one. Alright. Turn 1 Deathrite Shaman. And Alright, so opponent cracks a fetch. So we'll have at least some extra fodder for Deathrite Shaman. Opponent decides just to bolt it right away. No problem, we came with backup. So I'm leading with Stitcher Supplier here in case we hit like a Bloodghast, which we don't. I'm gonna go ahead and play Deathrite Shaman. Pass to the opponent. Check out what we have going on. Dragon's Rage Channeler, Shockland, Bobble. They keep it on top. The Crack Bobble. And Brainstorm. Let's see what the opponent does. Looking like Death Shadow or something. Alright, so opponent is going to draw off Bobble. We have a Stitcher Supplier. And decide, and the opponent just packs it in. So I'm shocked at how fast it ended. I wonder if they had like like they kept a reanimate or something and like a troll, and then realized that we were just gonna poach it with Deathrite. So now this is new. So turn 0 Leyline of the Void is a huge problem for us. Now opponent is playing a new kind of alchemy card that lets them heist. We'll see if it gets nerfed in the future, but at current time what it does is it pulls 3 non-land cards from the opponent's deck, and you get to choose one that you play. So that's the one they have in exile, is one of our non-land cards. And the fact that you get to choose the best one of 3 non-lands makes it very strong. I mean, that was like a 1-mana card that they played. Now, heist is one thing, but getting stifled on the fetch land, that is another. And it's not like we needed more things to go wrong, like the fact that there's a Leyline of the Void on the other side. So alright, the opponent's gonna play a Thieving Aven, another one of the heist cards. Dark Ritual is something. Now the thing is, every time Thieving Aven hits us, it gets to heist, and I'm gonna do something extremely costly. What is this, like a 3-for-1 right here? This is horrible. Dark Ritual out a Bloodghast, sacrifice it to Witch's Oven to trigger Revolt, and then Fatal Push down the Aven. We can't even get the Bloodghast back because of the Leyline of the Void, so things are just going from bad to worse. And now we can actually win through a Leyline of the Void. We have enough, like, you know, Dreadnoughts and stuff, like Dreadknights, I mean, and Bloodghast to like just attack people. And I go ahead and walk into another Stifle right here, and I'm just getting absolutely massacred. So opponent is going to do another Grave Expectations and hit us with the Siphon Insight. So the opponent has like a full-on theft deck. Not only a bunch of heist cards, but other things. Now at least we know that our fetch is safe right here. But honestly, the opponent like didn't even really need to even like stifle us. Like the Leyline of the Void is doing enough work. I decided to look through my deck right now to figure out which card they have. Opponent has a Deathrite Shaman. I'm able to figure out. Keep the Bloodghast on top because at least it's an attacker. Yeah, and there's our Deathrite Shaman. Which is another way we can win the game against this opponent, is by just dinging them with Deathrite Shaman. So it is really unfortunate that the opponent stole a Deathrite Shaman for us, because we would like all those that we can, because we can use the opponent's graveyard to like kill them. Gonna go and crack the fetch, and like we can play Roots, but it does absolutely nothing, because nothing will ever enter our graveyard in order to leave it. The opponent is prepared to just Inquisition or Lurrus away right after they're gonna crack the food. But yeah, let me know in the comments what's your favorite root. I'm pretty partial to potatoes, but I could be talked into some other ones as well. Our opponent plays a backup Leyline of the Void. I don't think we even have a... I don't think we have Boseiju in this deck, because they're mostly black. Like the only green cards we have like are the Dreadknights and Insidious Roots. Opponent's going to get rid of our Fatal Push. Here's the Siphon Insight. So this is like death by 1,000 cuts right here by our own cards. If the opponent could ever get an Insidious Roots and a Deathrite Shaman, like they could sort of replicate our game plan. But it's looking increasingly dire for us. Like the thing is, the opposing deck is like pure card advantage. Like every single card in there has like flashback or draws cards from our deck, and it's just... So we're just sort of top decking with our main game plan completely shut down. So now the opponent's gonna start stealing even more stuff with Thieving Haven. And I'm still holding out hope for Deathrite Shamans, but of course the opponent keeps stealing them from us, so that means there's even fewer of them left for us. This Dark Ritual is going to actually do something right now with the Mosswood Dreadknight adventure. Alright, so we draw a card off it, and we find a Deathrite Shaman, so we can actually rumble a bit. But the thing is, like, the Thieving Haven is going to just be like a huge problem for us. So I'm going to attack in with Bloodghast. Pass. Play the Deathrite Shaman. My opponent's going to hit us with Siphon Insight. The opponent has just like a huge stockpile of cards from us. There's our Cauldron Familiar. But yeah, this game, it wasn't the theft effects that killed us. It was the Leyline of the Void. And honestly, like, might have been able to concede earlier, but just stuck around for a bit. Now that's an opposing Fatal Push. That's an art that I'm not using right now. Speeding up through this part because I hung in there, but realistically, like, we were just dead right here. Like, the Haven's just gonna keep stealing stuff from us, and yeah, we go ahead and just pack it in. So that was a really tough one, like, against really strong graveyard hate, and then like a super card advantage strategy. So move on to the next one. And this hand, this is a reasonable hand. It's nice to see Insidious Roots, but we will need something to like actually start pulling back and forth from our graveyard. Alright, opponent plays a land and passes. Try and decide what to play right here. It's like, do we just play another Deathrite Shaman, or... I decided to go for Insidious Roots right here, just to get that engine online. Opponent decides to bolt Deathrite Shaman, so decide to add some mana in response. And alright, didn't get like spell pierced or anything, so happy that Insidious Roots landed against the opponent. Play a replacement Deathrite Shaman. And the opponent has swords for it. So, alright, an expressive iteration. So opponent's just basically playing like greatest hits of all colors over there. Alright, Wooded Foothills, pass. Well, if we ever do find these creatures to pull in and out of the graveyard, we'll be ready. So I'm going to put Lurrus into hand because we're sort of flooding out and we'd love to get the Deathrite Shamans back. Alright, opponent's taking a lot of damage. Alright, Teferi Time Raveler.
Stand by and watch.
Alright, so the opponent is going to bounce Insidious Roots. That's pretty annoying, just wasting a ton of mana for us. Trying to figure out what to do. There's a lot of options. You could slam like double roots right here. You can do Mosswood Dreadknight Adventure plus roots. Decide to go for one roots and then one just Dreadknight out there, because Dreadknight can attack Teferi and just force them to do something. Opponent has swords right away for it, so opponent's packing a lot of removal over there. Alright, Time Raveler. Alright, opponent passes. So seeing all those colors makes you think they probably are rocking Leyline Binding also. We'll play another Insidious Roots. Opponent counters it. Play Stitcher Supplier. Holding on to the land in case we hit a Bloodghast. Don't hit one. And gonna play Verdant Catacombs and pass. Really have just been missing on as far as stuff to bring back with Insidious Roots.
Trust me.
Alright, Teferi's gonna plus. And the opponent's just gonna slam another Teferi Time Raveler. And annoyingly, going to bounce our roots again. Delighted Halfling. So that was seeming like a control deck, but seeing Halfling makes me think something else going. Yeah, I can't Fatal Push it because of Teferi Time Raveler. So I'm going to just get a Surveil land at this point. Let's see if we get anything nice. Mosswood Dreadknight seems pretty good. Now, I really want to get rid of that Teferi. So we're going to play Roots. Going to Fatal Push Delighted Halfling. And this is just to open up an attack for Stitcher Supplier against the Teferi. So we'll see if it works. Opponent even has the Stained Glass one. Alright, so we do take down Teferi. And going for the card advantage here to try and really grind out the opponent. Like if they're going to try and 1-for-1 on us, and yeah, they just pack it in. Like we had our engine online basically, and they were not going to be able to outgrind us the way things were going. So we move on to the next game. Planes from the opponent, Mishra's Bauble. Mishra's Bauble again. Not the usual color you see paired with Mishra's Bauble, but interesting to see them go for it. We have a turn 1 Dark Ritual. Now if the opponent is going to crack both baubles, they should have set a stop on our draw step to get more card information. But maybe they decided that only after they saw Dark Ritual. So we're going to take away swords, and we see 1 ring and Blast Zone. So some sort of like mono-white control kind of thing going on over there, it appears. Alright, so the opponent's going to get their baubles, draws. Relic of Progenitus. Oh, more graveyard hate. And of course, you know, they draw that after we use our Inquisition. So that's a little frustrating, but this is not as bad as Leyline of the Void. So we can battle against this. Our opponent's going to activate in response. We do need to be mindful of Deathrite Shamans, but I'm trying to keep like a variety in our graveyard right now. Want to keep fodder for the Deathrite Shamans, both lands and spells. We're going to play Mosswood Dreadknight and pass. Blast Zone from the opponent. Honestly, like the decks that can support it, honestly should be playing more Blast Zones. Like it's just really strong. Like imagine activating Blast Zone and just killing a bunch of like Dragon's Rage Channelers and stuff. So it's very good against us. I mean, our deck is all 1s and 2s because it's a Lurrus deck. So alright, we're going to go Roots into Deathrite Shaman. Opponent's just poaching our graveyard 1 by 1. Now that we have Roots, though, we don't really care about the graveyard hate that much. It's going to be nasty for the opponent anyway, because they can make us exile stuff from our graveyard, but it's still going to create plant tokens and trigger Insidious Roots. Now I'm going to lead right now at Stitcher Supplier trying to spike a Bloodghast. And we do hit one. And decide to make an interesting play right here. So I'm going to play Witch's Oven. Notice I haven't played a land yet. Opponent's going to hit us with Relic again. I'm going to just get rid of a land. So what I'm going to do here is use Deathrite Shaman in our other land to cast Bloodghast from our hand. Yeah, so we have a land to use. So I'm going to play the Bloodghast, sacrifice it to Witch's Oven, and then play the land to bring them both back. So we're going to trigger both the Bloodghasts. And the opponent put down their like relic defense for a second, and so that gave us just a little window to get a little bit of value right there and get both Bloodghasts into play and get some plant tokens going. Alright, so opponent drawing off the 1 ring. Another Bauble. Still aren't quite sure what the opponent's endgame is. Like, are they just playing like Approach of the Second Sun? Attacking with everything besides Deathrite Shaman. Alright, opponent's going to crack Blast Zone X equals... Oh no, they're adding onto Blast Zone. Then swordsing a Bloodghast. We're going to just sacrifice it to Witch's Oven. Fizzle the swords, because we want to keep it in our graveyard. And now we're going to fetch and try and bring back the Bloodghast. We'll see if this finally prompts them to crack Relic. Alright, they do crack Relic, nailing the Bloodghast. However, it still is going to provide an Insidious Roots trigger. So, very happy about that. It even added a couple counters on for this attack that we were in the middle of. So, things are going pretty well. Like, once again, we still have to see, like, the opponent could be, I mean, they're in Wrath colors. Like, they could be packing, like, I don't know, Wrath of God or, what's the one that can, like, exile all the stuff? I'm forgetting right now. But anyway, bracing for impact. Alright, one ring. So the opponent is losing a lot of life. Alright, so they're going to crack Blast Zone with 2 counters on it. Taking out Roots and a Bloodghast. Alright, opponent's going to pass to us. Decide to crack the food token. I think I'd already checked the graveyards and there wasn't anything to Deathrite to deal damage to them, but now there is, especially since we have a Dark Ritual in hand. Alright, March of Otherworldly Light to kill a token. And another March to kill another token. So opponent has quite the defense with swords and marches and stuff, blast zones. They haven't been able to like work towards a win condition yet though. But we're gonna use Dark Ritual to put Lurrus into hand and play a Dreadknight and pass. Opponent falls to 4 right here and still activating the ring. See if they can find like another ring. Bobble. And they just pass. We'll definitely go into Deathrite Shaman and ding them for 2 damage. It looked, yeah. So gonna hit them for 2. Fateful Absence. We're not gonna sacrifice in response because we actually wouldn't mind the clue just to find more action. Oh, the card I was thinking about earlier was Farewell. Alright, so I'm gonna play the land to get the extra Bloodghast to come into play. Alright. Attacking with everyone, see if this does the trick. Opponent fires off Teferi's Protection. So I'm wondering if they're playing some sort of white Turbo Fog. So right now their life total can't change. It is making me wonder like, if they're trying to go put Farewell on the stack and then Teferi's Protection, sort of commander style. I wonder what they're trying to win with it. Maybe it's just the Ameria MDFC that we saw. Not sure. So opponent's activating. They gotta see if they could find any way to gain some life. It looks like they're just firing off a bunch of removal spells. Yeah, and they just pack it in. So didn't get to quite see what they're working towards, but very interesting concept on the other side of the battlefield. And we move into the next game against a Lurrus deck. Opponent shocks it in. I'm gonna crack. And I thought I was getting stifled again for a second. Had a hard time selecting the Surveil land. Alright. Don't want the swamp. We have enough lands right now. Inquisition seems pretty good. It will mean like holding off on the Dreadknights. Opponent has an interesting hand. So I didn't know it at this point in time, but this is actually the most pivotal action of the whole game. The opponent's hand is very well set up against us with Inquisition, Stern Scolding, Eliminate. I go and take Stern Scolding because it's such like an efficient answer to what we're doing. What I should have clued into is the fact that they're running Demonic Tutor. I should have just taken Demonic Tutor. Because a normal mid-range deck doesn't run Demonic Tutor. You notice like we're not running it. Most mid-range decks don't run it. Like it's your spells are very redundant. There's no need paying 2 extra mana to do that. It's more the combo decks that run Demonic Tutor. And so, like I said, I didn't clue into it at that time, but that was a very pivotal decision right there. Like, sure, they had a lot of removal and stuff. Like, our deck's designed to grind through that kind of stuff. So I should have taken the Demonic Tutor. But the opponent over there is clearly like trying to set up for something. Like we didn't see like any creatures from them, despite them being a Lurrus deck. Alright, so we put Dreadknight's Adventure on the stack. They mana drain us. Now, I'm not sure how long into the game I started realizing this, but I started thinking to myself, have I seen any redundant cards in their list? And the reason that is relevant is because the opponent could be playing Tainted Pack plus Thassa's Oracle. And I did start wondering that in the game, so here comes the Demonic Tutor. Because I've actually started tinkering with my own Thoracle list that uses Tainted Pack and stuff. So, but it was after a while I started thinking like, wait a second, have I seen any repeat cards from them? And you could see me looking right now thinking about that. Now, unfortunately, we are just like, we have them under like no pressure. Dark Ritual to put Lurrus into play doesn't seem amazing right now unless we can get value right away. Now, assemble a team. I think had I seen green mana earlier from them, I might have clued in that they were a combo deck. But now we finally see the green mana, and it seems like it's probably too late. Like, who knows what they grabbed with the Demonic Tutor. Alright. I'm gonna try and make something happen right now with Lurrus after a Dark Ritual. Could play a Mosswood Dreadknight, get an Insidious Roots trigger, so we're sort of going off right now. And opponent hits us with the old-fashioned good game, and there's Tainted Pact. So I'm going to turbo through their Tainted Pacts, because it just takes time to execute. And like I said, it was partway, by the time I was thinking about that they could have been a combo deck, it was too late. So they packed into a pact. They're trying to remove the redundancy out of their deck. Now I'm going to put Thassa's Oracle's trigger on the stack, and I'm going to go ahead and Fatal Push Thassa's Oracle. It's possible to win off 0 Devotion if they can clear out their whole library. And so basically I was just testing them, like testing the redundancy they have in their deck. But typically, the way I build it, I think most people build it, is 2 Thassa's Oracles, 2 Tainted Packs, and the opponent does end up finding the win. So that's a tough one. This deck is fun and just provides really satisfying gameplay, like just grinding people out by making tons of plant tokens and recurring all your stuff. Like, it's just good, clean magic. It's very fun. I really enjoyed this play pattern. And it could be that we possibly went a little too heavy on like Mosswood Dreadknights. Like, it could be that we maybe need to take out some or all of them and put in some more discard and some more, maybe like Abrupt Decays or more creature killing spells, just to like interact and trust that like Bloodghast and Cauldron Familiar can like be the engine we need with Insidious Roots. That's like another direction to take it. It also like doesn't do a whole lot without Insidious Roots, so like you could play some like Commune with Spirits to like try and find them easier, or maybe even Seed of Hope, since they can like put stuff in the graveyard and dig us toward Roots. So like those are some things to consider. But I think there's a lot of potential here, and it's definitely a lot of fun.